Welcome back to the Virtue Bowling Supply YouTube channel. My name is Chris and I'm here to bring you guys the high rev perspective.
And my name is Josh and I'll be bringing the low rev perspective.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Brunswick Combat Hybrid, and I'm going to be comparing that to the DV8 Heckler Hybrid and the Brunswick Alert.
And I'll be comparing it to the DV8 Severe Collision and the Brunswick Combat. These comparisons will give us and you an idea of what these pieces look like going down the lane. At the end, we will give our honest, unbiased review anywhere from nuts to trash. Today we are here out at Violenda on a fresh house shot. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you out on the lanes.
All right, after seeing the Combat Hybrid go down the lane, to me here at Violenda, this felt somewhat niche. To me, I feel like the original Combat, with it being a asymmetric pearl, I thought it was a little stronger, kind of for where it fits in the bag. And so I was kind of curious to see how much stronger this hybrid version was gonna be. And to me, the reason it felt niche is because when I kind of was playing my normal area, kind of in the middle part of laying up the track, it felt like it wanted to be pretty early and strong, but also pretty quick. Like, I felt like it almost hooked like 3 times the first couple of shots that I threw. And so it kind of forced me a little bit further left, but it wasn't quick enough off the end of the pattern when I found too much oil in the front part of the lane. So when I moved left and got it there, I could never really trust it to come off the end of the pattern the right way. When I kind of had to trick it to make it come off the end of the pattern, I felt like it floated a little too much and 10-pinned. If I got it forward, it kind of pancaked when it hit the pin. So I never really was able to kind of get comfortable with this one. It was a little confusing in my eyes. So now I'm gonna go and throw the Heckler Hybrid and see how that compares. All right, to me, the Heckler Hybrid felt a little bit more predictable, like I knew what was gonna happen when it went down the lane. There was one where I kind of got a little too quick and I was far left to where I needed to play. So this one I was able to play a little bit further to the right, and you could really see how much kind of slower and hook stoppy that ball reaction wanted to be. And I feel like that's easier kind of to predict and see rather than the Combat Hybrid, not really knowing if it's gonna see the pattern really early or be kind of quick to the friction. The Heckler Hybrid, I think, is just had a little bit better ball motion than the Combat Hybrid. So now I'm going to go ahead and throw the Alert and see how that compares. All right, now to me, the Alert is definitely more of a complement to the Combat Hybrid. I feel like once the fronts start to go a little too much and the Combat Hybrid is just a little too early and quick to friction, I feel like the Alert is something I could go to and it'd float a little bit more and be a little bit more predictable off the end of the pattern. This one's pretty rounded and I felt like I could kind of throw it there and always kind of trust that it was gonna do the right thing. Final thoughts on the Combat Hybrid. I think this is gonna fit somewhere in the mech category. Honestly, I felt like the original Combat was quite a bit more impressive. And honestly, I think with the original being a little stronger of an asymmetric pearl, I feel like there's a bit of an overlap between the two. And I think I would definitely not have both of them in the bag at the same time, just because of how similar they kind of were. But I feel like the original one was a little bit more versatile and a little bit more dynamic than the hybrid version.
Just threw 10 shots with the new Brunswick Combat Hybrid. This ball for me was a little bit earlier than I was anticipating. The original one for me felt like it was a pretty clean ball motion. I mean, this one definitely dug. For me, it kind of reminded me of like the old Prism series. I feel like not the biggest asymmetrical hybrid, but still bigger than your norm. I did feel like I had to kind of play more in the oil, but again, I still feel like I had no trouble with the ball wanting to hook. I did feel like I have to be a little bit forward with it. If I got around it, it just kind of read the lane a little bit weird. But overall, I felt like I really enjoyed this ball motion going down the lane, and I felt really comfortable. And again, I felt like I could throw this really like the second ball out of the bag whenever there's any type of oil on the lane. Medium to heavy, I feel like this ball is definitely going to get some lane play. So now we're going to go ahead and throw 5 shots with the Severe Collision and see how it compares. Just wrapped up throwing 5 shots with the severe collision. Ball for me is one of my steady eddies in my bowling bag. This is my #1 ball from last year, and today it looked okay. It struck a couple of times, but again, I think for me, I did feel like they were starting to get a little clipped at this point, so it didn't really matter what ball I was throwing. I knew I was going to have to make a good shot for the ball to actually see the friction in the right area of the lane. The last couple shots you could kind of see where they weren't bad shots, but 1 4-pin, 1 10-pin, and you could start to see how the lane was starting to get a little tricky. However, compared to the Combat, I do think that this is just a little bit cleaner, a little quicker to friction. For me, the Combat is I would say it's almost like in between a maximum effect and the severe collision. I feel like it's a perfect kind of baby of both. Gives you a little bit more shape, but still, again, still early, kind of like the maximum. So now we're gonna go ahead and throw the original Combat and see how it compares to the new one. Just threw 5 shots with the OG Brunswick Combat. Immediately I could tell how much cleaner this ball was. It kind of surprised me a little bit because I thought the lanes were hooking a little bit, but I almost feel like the Combat just hooked so much that it tricked me into thinking that the lanes were hooking more than they were. Threw this ball, and then first couple shots I was just kind of stubborn, didn't really want to move right just because I felt like if I threw the ball further right it would come back, but it clearly was not. But once I finally went 3 or 4 boards right, the ball shaped in the right zone. It didn't necessarily strike, but again, like you could see that was the area of the lane to play for that ball. But for me, that ball was definitely a zone, if not 2 zones cleaner than the Combat Hybrid. I felt like the Combat Hybrid had to be further left just because I really had no choice. It would have hooked way too early if I stood where the original Combat was. Final thoughts on the Brunswick Combat Hybrid. For me, this was kind of a little bit of a shocker. I didn't expect this ball to hook as much as it did, but at the same time, I still liked that it hooked that much because I felt like it still hooked early enough, but somehow still shaped enough down lane to where it wasn't just puking because it hooked so early. So definitely one of those bigger balls that still shapes down lane, still is pretty continuous. And for me, I really enjoy that type of shape. Like I said, the Prism Hybrid was one of my kind of favorite balls before COVID, and this one kind of gives me a feel like that ball. So for me, this ball is going to be a fire. I felt like it hooked in oil, but still shaped off of friction nicely and kind of gave me, again, miss room in really both directions, which gotta love out of a bowling ball. So fire for today.
Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, make sure to like it, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.